So last week's video reminded me of a little trick that I used to recycle 16th note lines and turn them into triplet lines. And what it does is it takes advantage of a quirk that you get from some extended pentatonic patterns, so that when you start to play 16th note lines over these patterns, they turn into triplet lines. So let's start by quickly defining what I mean by an extended pentatonic pattern. So by an extended pentatonic pattern, what I mean is if you start with a standard position, so it's got two notes on a string, you take that position and the position above and just glue them together, you end up with three notes on a string. And obviously you've got this repeated note where the same note appears on two consecutive strings. Okay, so that's what I mean by an extended pentatonic pattern. Now these are actually quite useful patterns from 2 points of view, and I use them from 2 points of view. Firstly, they're great at minimising the number of string crossings that you make when you're playing different lines, so they're really worth experimenting because you can really simplify how you pick lines across the strings. And then secondly, they're really good, as I say, for turning 16th note lines into triplet lines. Now I've talked about the first approach in previous videos, but it's so useful that I think it's probably worth covering now. So I'll give you a quick run through about what I mean about minimising string crossings. Let me demonstrate. So there's a couple of shapes that really kind of demonstrate how you use these extended pentatonic patterns to simplify string crossing. If we start with descending threes, for example. So this is how you'd approach it if you just used the normal pentatonic. And you can see here what I'm doing, 1, 2, 3, and then I've got string cross, and then I'm onto the next string. So there's cross, cross, cross. So there's alternating, staying on a string, and then you have to bounce between two strings, and then you stay on the next string. If you play that same line using these extended patterns, you can take advantage of that repeated note, so you don't cross the strings, you don't cross backwards again, if you see what I mean. So starting from the very highest note, you go. So I've just crossed, and then I reach out for that next, then I cross, and then I reach out for the next note. So hopefully you can see, having this extra note means I don't have to cross the string so much, so that's really quite useful. And you see it with descending fives as well. So for example, if I was playing a descending five pattern there, if I did that with these extended lines, I'd start with this reached out note, this stretched out note. See how I can use that stretched out line, play three notes, then change strings, and then stretch out for the next group of five, change strings. So each string I'm just playing the same line, which is a lot easier than trying to navigate on the standard pentatonic. Hopefully you can see that. But the other approach is really what I wanted to focus on this week, and that's how these patterns can be used to create new lines, can be used to recycle existing motor skills that you've got, existing lines, and reapplying them in different ways. And what you're doing here is you're ignoring the fact that there's that repeated note, but you're using lines that you already know in new ways. So let me zoom in and I'll show you how this works. Okay, so let's start with where we left off last week. So I'll start with a standard 3 notes per string scale, and we'll just do descending fours. So that's pretty much the pattern that I talked about, and I showed how to pick it as well last week. Let's take that same pattern and we'll just reapply it to these stretched out pentatonic shapes, and you get this kind of sound. So you can hear that repeated note appearing in it, and it kind of changes the line. Now, there's an interesting quirk about these shapes, and that is that every third note is repeated. 1, 2, 3, same note repeated, 1, 2, 3. And what that does is that allows you to take lines and play them with a triplet feel over this shape, and they kind of fit. Let me see if I can demonstrate. So if I take that same pattern that we just played through, so that's a 16th note pattern. But what I want you to do is to try and sort of reset your meter, so you're thinking in triplets. So you're thinking 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2. Hopefully you can hear that. Can you hear that that's exactly the same shape I was playing before, but if you're thinking about it, if you play over a triplet meter, it still fits. There's a weird, interesting quirk that you get because every third note of this pattern is repeated. You find that when you start playing lines over it, it kind of implies a triplet feel innately from the shape. And you can do this with many different lines as well. So if I take another 16th note line, just a really simple one like, so hopefully you can feel that that's sort of in 16th notes or 8th notes. It certainly doesn't have a triplet feel to it. And I take the same line, hopefully you can see I'm playing the same line, but now I'm playing it over that pentatonic pattern, and then you reset your meter again to think in kind of a triplet way. So it's 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. And that's it. It's just a weird quirk of this. But you can recycle your existing 16th note patterns and lines and shapes, play them over these extended pentatonic lines, reset your meter to be a triplet, and it suddenly creates a whole new set of lines using the same finger patterns, the same motor skills that you've already developed previously. So it's really interesting. It's a really good way of using motor skills that you've already developed. And actually the hardest part of this is being able to reset your mind. So instead of thinking of in a 16th note meter, you're thinking in a triplet meter, but you're playing a line that you learnt with that 16th note feel to it, if you see what I mean. But once you get the knack of that, you'll find that you can reuse lines that you've learnt in other contexts, and they sound really quite different, and they sound really quite unique because of that repeated note in there as well. So it's worth experimenting with this and seeing where you get with it. Anyway, have fun with it, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.